people together that tell the truth. Yeah, I'm going to put it on record. But yeah, we were just having a little chat while we were waiting for you. Thank you very much, Simon and Mel and Anne, for joining today. We're coming into a phase now where people are coming together to provide clarity, and we had it last night. And today we've got Anne with us. She missed us last week because she was busy, which was a great shame. And I did get a message from Nino to say that he's got some family issues. And I don't know if that's trying to make a family or whether it's it was his parents.
I think it's his parents. He's been a little been busy.
Yeah.
Yes, busy. Exactly. But you girls were watching or catching up on the Biden speech yesterday that you were talking about just now. Inform us.
Yeah, it's just so over the top. I mean, the guy, it's so hard to watch at this point. It's just it's scripted. He's vague. It's the same thing. There were like 10 people there, even though they all are vaccinated, all wearing their masks. And it's like, and they're fist bumping. I mean, it was just such a show. It was so bizarre. And these people walking around fully vaccinated, they were 6 feet distant still, all this. It was just such a it's so pathetic at this point.
It's drama for the sake of drama. They're basically acting like a bunch of social justice warriors trying to prove that they're walking the talk. But as soon as the cameras turn off, what happens? Right? Yeah. As soon as the cameras turn off, they leave the chambers. It's back to business as usual. It's the same old. I didn't even watch the thing because I was live broadcasting my show, which it was coinciding that time. I started to look through some of the Telegram channels to see what people were saying about it. And I mean, it was people were sleeping through it. Ted Cruz was sound asleep. There was a couple other people completely sound asleep. And it's weird to see the whole chamber empty. I mean, just these people are socially distanced. They only had a handful of people in there. It's like, what is going on? And then you get citizen journalism reports, Richard citizen journalists going around DC, and they're boarding up the White House again. They're towing cars away from the Capitol. Their troops are getting off with AR-15s off buses right outside the White House. And it's like, what is happening in DC right now? There's nobody there, as evidenced by the chambers and the pictures from this fake president. It's just the most bizarre twilight zone we're in right now. And he's signing away executive orders, and he's going to send us to the gulag if we even so much as say anything that he doesn't like at this point. They can just take everything we have. It's insanity.
Mm-hmm. Or at least I don't know if anybody saw Linwood's Telegram channel, but at the end he said, "Now where is Joe Biden?" I think he calls him Joey.
Oh yes.
And then it ended with a cemetery, and I thought that's very interesting. He's trying to tell people that the original Biden's no longer on the earth.
Yeah, he did that at I was in Tulsa 2 weeks ago, Simon, and it was Lynn. First of all, we had Jim Caviezel spoke and Tim Ballard, and they brought the house down. And then Lynn Wood came in on Saturday night and absolutely just, if there was any doubt in whatever was going on, Lynn Wood put all those doubters to bed, because he was out there making the queue all over. And he was out there, talking about child sex trafficking. And he out and out named the Clintons, the Bushes, the Obamas, and the Vatican, the Pope. And he goes, if he's still alive. And he just literally went on and on. It was so great. The place went nuts. 5,000 people are on their feet cheering, because this is, and by the way, One American News cut the feed. They wouldn't play Lynn Wood live. I thought that was interesting. I don't know why they cut the feed, but they cut the feed, and they've been broadcasting the most of the day. So that was interesting. But I mean, people are hungry for this information. They want to know what in the heck's going on. And it's, when you start to think about, there's a Treasury and an IRS. There's a United States Postal Service, and there's a United States Post Office. You start looking at the duality of everything going on, and you start to realize, wait a minute, we've been hoodwinked. Yeah. And I think people are waking up to it right now, and here in Nevada, they've lifted the mask mandate. So if you're outside, you can sit outside. You don't have to have your mask on.
So
and you can start to see it. It's like Florida.
Florida then, Anne.
Yeah, well, that's where I'm from originally. So, I mean, it's refreshing, but it's
I'm sure Charlie and Mel won't mind if I've got you here. I just want to ask you a question, which a lot of my spiritual group have been asking me, and I want to put it to you, is that I know we're all really excited about the AZ audit, but the chances of it actually getting anywhere, what's the chances of that actually making it up the pipe so that something happens?
Well, after today, I think the chances, Simon, are really actually quite good because the judge who was appointed by the Obamas, Janet Napolitano, who, if you know anything about her reign of terror as the governor, and then of course the attorney, she was also an attorney general of Arizona, but she was also the DHS director. She was known as the Arizona Mafia, the queen of the Arizona Mafia, and she was very involved in Operation Fast and Furious, where they were running all those guns by the thousands, tens of thousands, not just 2,000 as reported in the news. But she also was involved in stacking the deck with some really bad Secret Service agents as well. That's why President Trump always had his own private detail. He didn't just rely totally on the Secret Service, though he was very gracious. But when that judge, who was a Democratic judge appointed by Napolitano, ruled in favor of the audit team, the Florida-based company called Cyber Ninjas, and said, we will not have a temporary restraining order. The audit will proceed forward. That was a big win because they've got to go through 2.2 million ballots and they're scrambling. I know the team that's behind all this, putting all this on, I had them on stage with me, Shelby Bush and Steve Robinson from We the People AZ Alliance. They rallied the citizens in Arizona to contact their state senators and get the state senators to get the backbone to demand this audit. And because the state Senate has plenary power, they cannot be challenged, even though the left has challenged them significantly and, thrown flags on the field and lawsuits. So I actually feel really good about this because the state Senate is driving this at this point. Now it's up to the Cyber Ninjas to complete the audit and make sure that all of that's done. But that so far, just in the sample size, I don't know if you heard this, but they've already pretty much extrapolate from the sampling of what they've done. They predict about 250,000 of the ballots are illegal aliens, that they're out.
Charlie and I were having a chat about that. I think Biden's win is something like 10,200. He won by just over 10,000. So if you've got 250,000 votes that are going to be removed, we know they'll all be Biden votes. Thanks, Anne. That was
So I think it's really good. And that's going to be a cascade, Simon. We're seeing that in Windham, New Hampshire as well. That was really cantankerous up there. They tried to select the audit team in secret, but the judge overruled that. So they had to pick up audit team. But what did they do? They selected a very left-wing auditor. So there's there's consternation going on up there. Then you have Wisconsin. They're moving in that same phase. We just got to get people mobilized in like Fulton County, Georgia, where, remember Ruby Freeman and the ballots and the suitcases and all that stuff on camera, and the fake water main break. There was a toilet leak. I mean, all this stuff, we know what it is. And of course, Mike Lindell. So I think it's just going to take a process, Simon. And we, the people, are recognizing we're the government. We have to stand up and act accordingly. So I actually do feel really good about it. How are we going to enforce it? I think they're going to see the power of we the people, because there's a lot more of us than there are of them. So I think there's a reason there's a fence in DC. It's probably they should be scared.
Thank you, Anne. Thanks. I've just had to put that question. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Good question.
This is very, very important, because what the left are trying to do is make out that it's Lynn Wood and it's Q. It's not. It's the people of Arizona.
That's right.
The people that are doing it. And they're trying to hide away from that. And the fact, I had the preliminary count up front. And the other thing, of course, with Arizona, there was 150,000 votes in that 250,000 that were mail-in ballots, and they were all checked because not one of them had been folded.
Right.
And of course, these sort of schoolboy errors now are exposing them for what they are.
Right.
And the fact that they've sent 1,000 lawyers to try and stop it suggests that they're trying to cover something up.
Right.
Well, they don't just do it. They do it so huge. They didn't cheat strategically by, making it not so obvious. They went so big, and that's what they do. They brought it's the Justice Democrats. It's Perkins Coie, who's, been doing the Clintons' dirty work for decades. And the DNC, they're bringing in 1,000 attorneys, all of this to usurp the people of of Arizona. It's their state. It's such an overreach. And at this point, everything they do is in panic mode. And therefore, it's so big and so embarrassing. Everything that they've tried so far to stop this recount just makes them look terrible. I just think it's shining a light even more for people thinking, well, if the people of Arizona don't fully trust the vote, they have the right to have the audit. They got this far. Now, every day, they're just making it look more and more like they're guilty.
That's exactly right. And you know what we learned it was proven. And in fact, Newsmax, which I now call mainstream media, they actually did a segment on the fact that these ballots were watermarked. Jovan Hutton Pulitzer's, ultraviolet technologies, kinematic machines can look for the artifacts. So when they have their, their mail-in ballot that's nice and flat, and they're looking for folds and artifacts in the creases in the paper, they can prove there are none because they never were folded. But they can also look for the watermark. So these ballots, I mean, remember when Steve Bitchute put that out like a year ago about how the these ballots, the quantum voting system and all that, they were watermarked, and they prove it. They show you how they can see the watermarks in the ballot as authentic. Right. So really, really fascinating stuff to hear that conspiracy is now fact. It's a conspiracy fact, no longer a theory.
Charlie and I did a show on it. Yeah, I call us all conspiracy analysts now. It is conspiracy, and it's not theory. It's just putting together the dots, because the dots are so blatant. Also, I don't know if you guys saw it today, giant overreach, full on Gestapo. They raided Rudy Giuliani's house.
Oh my God.
And Victoria Tonsing. And this is terrible, but because we still live in America, as far as I know, and they're looking for crimes. Again, this is about Ukraine. I keep saying to people, look, when did Ukraine become the most important place on the planet? When they did their color revolution. So again, they're just trying to either cover up what they've already done, or, keep going, whatever con or scam they're involved in Ukraine. But it's amazing that here we go again. And also they're going after John Solomon and stuff. But the crazy part about the Rudy Giuliani thing is they took everything except for Hunter Biden's hard drives.
I know. No, we don't want those.
How can this
don't need those?
Movie? Isn't that? I mean,
Mel, but those hard drives are all over the internet. They don't need a copy. They've already got, the whole world has got copies of Hunter Biden's laptop.
I know, but the irony of them not taking it and Rudy being like, "That's it," and I'm like, I don't want that.
But the thing, just to interject here, but I know that these guys are strong and they can look after themselves, and many of them have got multi-million-dollar lawsuits. But how much more of this do we all have to take? I mean, you've got decent people whose homes are being raided, and yet there are plenty of white hats or plenty of good people. How often or how much longer are they got to sit behind their desk and see this and think, oh, well, it's fun, it's enjoyable, it's good to wake people up? And, Charlie and I had a conversation, and I'm not so sure that that message is necessarily the right message. And what do you think?
Yeah, that's a great question, Simon. And we talk about it a lot because, there's a lot of us sitting right here that understand what's happening. And we're wondering, how much longer do we have to wait before the people who don't even watch the news understand what's happening? And do they really have to go all the way? I mean, I already feel like I'm getting burnt in the fire. Like, I feel it. And I feel it because I have a lot of people calling me every day. I can't take it anymore. I had another 20 phone calls this morning, starting at 6 a.m. because I live in the West Coast here now. Okay. But, I've got to, at some point, we've got to say, if they're just people that don't want to pay attention because they're just never going to pay attention, let's just stop, because they'll never know it changed anyway. They just totally are disengaged. And maybe that's 10% of the population, 20, I don't know. But there's a segment that's just never going to care. So we have to define this line. And, anymore with the Gestapo tactics that we saw today with Rudy Giuliani, and I know many people that have been arrested and put in solitary or at least harassed by the FBI from the Capitol 6 deal. How much longer are we going to wait? Because they're not going to stop. They're going to keep making example after example after example out of each and every one of us until they get taken away. But how many more people do we need to be made examples before the white hats come in and stop what's happening here? I still contend that I think we're having to look for that balance, Simon, between the white hats, the people that are watching this operation unfold, whoever they are, but more importantly, we the people, because as you know, in our Declaration of Independence, those are the first 3 words. We have it on our Constitution, and we the people need to govern ourselves accordingly, and we haven't for a long time. So I think it's just it's a cascading event of Maricopa County, Windham, New Hampshire, Antrim County, Michigan, Wisconsin, Fulton County, Georgia. We just have to go around and get that groundswell. And I think it's going to be the gasoline on that fire is going to be when President Trump starts up the Trump rallies in a couple of days here, which is May. It's supposed to start up in May sometime. So I think that is going to energize the base. I think we had to feel this pain. I think, as Bono Savin calls it, a near-death experience. I think there's some validity to that. But, I'm hearing from a lot of people that there is a tsunami coming. And I think that tsunami is made up of we the people, plus whatever else information that they've had under their, hats for a while, like the quantum voting system. And tracking how all these votes were stolen in all the countries. I spoke to Maria Zack. I don't know if any of you have ever spoken to Maria Zack before, but she's very clear on what's going on with Obama, as well as the Bidens. I mean, the Bidens have been Hunter and Joe. There's a witness that will come forward about Hunter and Joe Biden in Serbia talking with the Dominion reps. There's another witness that can testify to Obama and $400 million in Dominion payments and throwing this election. So there is a lot happening, but it's not out in the mainstream media.
Yeah,
and
that's exactly the point, that the people who go to the Trump rallies, the people who watch the right channels, that base isn't necessarily growing now. It's reached a saturation point, and probably there's more people awake in America, Anne and Mel, than perhaps anywhere else. And maybe there's 20% in America who refuse to listen. I mean, that's very good, because in Britain it'll be like 60-70% who refuse to listen.
Sad.
It will be that bad. But what I'm saying is that, when do you think it might come to a point when no more new people are being woken up, no more new people being engaged with? Do you think sort of July would be a good time when we might begin to, we the people can sort of take a breather or take a bit of a vacation and think, oh yes, now other agencies might come in now and make it a bit easier for us? Do you think July is a good?
Simon, I'm not one to put dates on things, because I feel like that puts a lot of pressure. I take pressure all the time, but it puts pressure on people who want to believe that. And then when it doesn't happen, it's that hopium that lets people down. I don't think that's fair. I even think if President Trump called me today and said, hey, it's all going down July 4th, I'd be like, sounds good, boss. I'll see it when I believe it, or I'll believe it when I see it, because things change. In battle, you've got to be nimble. And this is a war. This is an unconventional fifth dimensional cyber war we're in. It's psycho terror on top of it all, with, the people that don't see the bigger picture. They're being terrorized by what they're reading in the headlines today. But as I always say, it's wash, rinse, repeat news. And you could take today's headlines and plug it into the Obama administration, the Clinton, and the Bushes. It's the same story, same scandals, just different administration. The only headlines, the only administration you can is Trump.
I will let go of this one, because I know other guys want to talk, but there's a beginning now to be quite a strong feed coming through, which is Trump is never coming back. That this is just about the people. And if the people don't do it, then America's lost. But Trump is not coming back. How do you respond to that?
I actually am okay with that, because this is how our country was founded. And I, every night, pound civic duty. And in fact, we did another example of an incredible couple that went and read 18 U.S.C. Code 4 and Code 2382, calling for felonies and misprision of treason based on the grievances of the stolen election. And they handed over a thumb drive to these public officials, the city of Round Rock, Texas, their congressional office in Texas, and said, you have to investigate this based on these USC codes. If you don't, you're guilty of felonies of misprision of treason and so on. So we have to know how our government is run. We are the government. And frankly, President Trump, as fantastic as he is a man. And the office of the presidency has limited powers, Simon. The power resides in we the people of the states. And we totally forgot that, because we've been brainwashed and our country was hijacked by a lot of terrible people, many years ago. And so we have got to atone for those sins, even though we didn't create it, but we've got to fight back and take our country back. And Trump bankrupted the country and has put it into bankruptcy. So that's fine, but we need to understand how we're going to govern ourselves accordingly. And it's going to take some brave people standing up, and we are around the country. But this didn't happen overnight. This happened over decades. So it might take us a while to get it going again. We might be in this situation for a while. I hope not. I hope there's a better plan, but I don't know what it is. I'm not privileged to that point. I just know that Dan Scavino, who's a trusted confidant of the president, is putting out some pretty compelling content right now, and he's telegraphing the president's coming back. He's just not defining the capacity. And it could just simply be Trump rallies. And Trump is going to start educating us on civic duty and how we have to go about reorganizing our government, because it does define that in our Constitution that, if there is a time, such a time as this, it's, time to overthrow our government and get rid of the rascals we have that have destroyed our country. And frankly, Simon, look at what they've done around the world, all the endless wars. We've just trashed places. No wonder countries hate the United States of America. You can hardly not blame them at some faction. It's not the people, it's the government that has done this. And it's our government complicit with your government, complicit with other governments around the world. It's not the people, it's the government. And they're all criminals.
Yes, Anne, thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
That confirms a point that a couple of spiritual people have come to me and said that the whole idea of Trump having the vaccination and pressing the vaccination is for us not to put an individual. We've idolized people and put them on pedestals for far too long, rather than trusting in God. And we've just gone down the focus of, get behind him 100%, and it's blind faith. And that's not where we should be going, not into blind faith. We should be going, making our own discernment, our own judgment, based on the accuracy of our moral compass. And that's where it becomes very important that our moral compass is accurate. Because if it's not, every judgment you make will be out of sync.
Right.
But I think that's a very important point. Whether it's Trump or whether it's a Kennedy or anybody makes no difference. At the end of the day, they're men or women. It could be man or woman. That's not even relevant. It's whoever leads the people. And the most important thing is to take the people with you. And they've left us behind because they've had their own agenda. They've had their own plan. Very interesting that all this talk about the global depopulation. And then in the next breath, you hear how much land there is in America that's being bought up that's not been used.
Right.
Well, it's conflicting all the time. And I live down in southern Spain. If you go from Malaga up to Madrid, it's empty between Malaga and Madrid on the train. 2.5 hours traveling at 300 kilometers an hour on a train, 500 miles or something. There's nothing there. There's plenty of space. It's just for some reason they've put everybody like in pens, if you like, in cities. But even when I fly into England, I'm amazed how busy the roads are, and yet when you fly over England, the amount of green land there is and the space that there is. But yeah, from an island point of view of the United Kingdom, 70+ million and rising is a huge number of people for infrastructure to cope with, for definite. But I've often said that once you refinance Africa, South America, the Middle East, in Syria, Libya, Iran, Iraq, you won't have to ask people to go back. They'll rush back to their motherland to rebuild it.
That's
and
right.
then England will be in an absolute mess because there'll be nobody left to work.
Well, it's one thing that I do see on the geopolitical side, multiple things on the geopolitical side, but we do remember that about 2 years ago, Donald Trump flat out said that John Kerry was undermining the presidency and committing treason by meeting with the Iranians behind his back. And now we have the leak of the tapes of the Iranian minister who was meeting with Kerry, saying that not only was Kerry running a shadow government, the same time Pompeo was negotiating with Iran out of the deal and finding a new way, he was talking to Iran saying, hang in there, we're going to get rid of Trump. Well, Trump knew all this 2 years ago. It was even on the back channel. Actually, it was on the back channel on a date very close to right now. And then on top of that, Ann and I have done a show on it. I think Charlie and I have too, on the truth about the Iran deal. What happened with the Iran deal had very much a lot to do with what happened in our election. A lot of that money was involved in some of the nefarious stuff. As we talked about, the money went to the Bank of International Settlements, then was redistributed from there. And again, the Ukraine thing is, we can't keep thinking that we're getting any kind of real news, because we're not. And to me, the whole Ukraine thing has been a cover up the whole time. The impeachment, all of it for the Biden family. So I'm watching them go into Rudy's house, seize his computer, do all of this, saying that he somehow was a foreign agent for Ukraine. And I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. Kerry actually was an unregistered foreign agent for Iran. And that's why, and then when they left the Hunter hard drives, I'm thinking, this is like a mirror. It's like saying, I understand right now that justice seems really far away, but a part of me thought, how are they going to dare charge Rudy Giuliani with a FARA violation when we're sitting right here and we have evidence on the mainstream media even that Kerry actually did do that. They don't have to search for it. So to me, I think that there's just a lot of, and it was Southern District of New York too, you know, that's sitting on the Epstein case. They're sitting on the Ukraine case. They're sitting on the Huawei, Nexium, Weinstein, like the Southern District of New York is like their own little realm over there. So I don't know if all of this isn't very much for us to look at. People now are going to be like, well, if he has the Hunter Biden laptop, and they didn't take it, then what's going on with that? Don't they want to see if there's child pornography on there or these crazy business deals or any of that? How can they leave that behind? And, you know,
what about Ukraine with their active investigation into just the Biden family, period?
Right. He's a criminal defendant. And on top of that, Poroshenko, that he had fired at the Council of Foreign Relations, laughing, finally gave up on Ukraine and went to the European courts to file a case against Joe Biden for being wrongfully dismissed from a case for political reasons. So all of that is happening. And again, it's Putin. And honestly, it's G2 and other people saying there will be no great reset. This isn't going to happen and all of that. So as much as we're hearing one thing here, and it looks like, you know, all this talk that they're telling us about Ukraine and this and that, the real crimes are, we know what they are. I'm just at a place like what Simon's saying, where I did believe that we would see justice, and we're not seeing justice at this point. And I'm just curious, where is this, like, okay, they're going in and trying to rip apart Rudy Giuliani's house, but where is Durham? How come nobody has gone down for Russiagate? You know, and it's like, I think that it's time for people to expose that. There's just so much that can be exposed that we all know about that. And I'm wondering, like, at what point are they just going to do that? Because if we, the people,
Mel, that's my concern, is that they're not going to expose it. That's the problem.
Me too.
For some people, I think this is a great game and they're enjoying it and it's fun because they're looking at it from a position where it's not actually touching them. But for so many of the people, it is touching them, and having to live under, and it is an oppression, actually. They're living under this, and they're thinking, well, where, you know, not where is God in all this? They're not asking that, but what they're saying is, you know, will this ever break? Because the stranglehold that the deep state has, I don't mean through the Clintons, the Obamas. I've talked to Charlie about this. I'm talking about the people that never appear on television, the faceless people, the people that are really the powerful people. They're the ones that are pulling the strings for the bad guys. And I don't actually, from where I'm sitting, I don't see any evidence that there is a breakthrough in terms of justice being done. What I see is a lot of people in America in different groups fighting for survival and fighting to be able to have a decent life. But this smothering hand, which I would call the deep state, there doesn't appear to be anybody on an organized level. I'm not being disrespectful. I'm talking about an organized level to take it on. And I think personally, it's wrong to ask the people to fight unless you give them, and I say the weapons, I don't mean the guns, unless you give them the empowerment to do it. You're asking ordinary citizens who have been disempowered in America for many, many years to suddenly now find their strength, but they're fighting against an organization that is designed to hold them in place. And frankly, in my opinion, and it's only my humble opinion, unless they get a little bit of extra help, wherever that might come from, we might find that there isn't the breakthrough that the white hats seem to expect.
Do you think, Simon, that is going to be maybe kicked off by the fact that we've already seen our tax date delayed? And of course, they're going to belabor that on COVID. But, when you're running tandem, when you're living in a duality world of our government with the IRS and the Treasury, each one representing different aspects. We have a bankrupt corporation, we have a constitutional government. President Trump had said that if he was reelected, that there would not be any more payroll tax, and he would do away with last year's payroll tax because he belayed that as well. At some point, it becomes incumbent on the people to recognize exactly how the government is funding itself. I mean, it's funding itself off our CQV trusts. It's funding itself off our taxes. It's it's printing money like a drunken sailor. And we are expendable as far as they're concerned. And until we recognize that, until we feel discarded and insignificant, and we're just an asset, until people start to feel that. And I think that's what you're talking about here is when are we going to say enough is enough and maybe not be dependent on somebody to come along like a President Trump or even somebody else, because we have to recognize we have to stand up. And, I walked into, let me give you an example. This is very sublime, but I walked into the pet store today because I had to get dog food, and I put both my dogs in the car, ran out of the house, drove these big furry animals, and I said, I'll take them in the store. I cruise on in. I'm not wearing a mask. I live in a Democrat state, Nevada. Governor Sisolak's tyrannical, and you have to wear a mask. And I walked in, the cashier said, where's your mask? I said, oh, I don't have one. And I just kept going. She says, oh, well, I just had to ask. And then I walked through the store and I saw people had masks on, and I couldn't find what I was looking for. And I kept bumping into the same people. Eventually, I saw them take their masks off because I was like, hi, how are you? Oh, what kind of dog do you have? A lot of people have their dogs. People just want to feel that it's okay. They're not alone. Maybe they don't want to be a leader in something, but if you just give them a little bit of nudge, and that's really what we're doing right now, but it's on a bigger scale, Simon. So it's going to take some time.
I hear you, Anne, but there's a difference between being in a store and meeting people who are doing that. There's a difference between people who are then facing a bureaucracy, an organization, because I know the white hats do not want armed citizens on the street because they'll end up fighting law enforcement.
Right.
And that's not what the white hats want. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
but if you
doesn't law enforcement have a job though to determine who they work for? I mean, they are our public servants, our taxes.
With the greatest respect, Anne, they will work for the person who pays them, whether that is the governor or whoever it is. The only people I think you can trust are the marshals and some of the sheriffs who have been sworn in. I think the vast majority of the cops will work who pays them. Now, when you look at it, you say, and I do understand this, that yes, the United States as a corporation is bankrupt, and where's the money coming from? I don't actually think the ordinary people in America give a damn about that. I think all they care about is, am I going to have the money for my salary? Can I afford to buy my mortgage? Can I do this? Can I do that? If anyone's asking these people to suddenly form a group, I get that. But how are they going to challenge the machinery of government?
I know what you're saying.
I'm going to hop in here just now because I've been sitting here trying to work out what I can and can't say because I know a lot more than I can say. But I can assure you that we're extremely close to the first domino falling, extremely close. There was a slight delay this week, and that was down to bankers interfering within the banking system from the transition, which hopefully should have happened earlier this week. But this week, there's been over 2,000 arrests now of banking cabal who tried to either hijack the money from the quantum financial system or introduce their own digital currency within the system. So they've got something to play with. There's a lot of stuff I can't tell you, but I can assure you 100% that we're extremely close. But they had to remove evil before they actually flicked the switch fully. And I don't think I've crossed the line, but I know that the entire quantum team watch virtually every video I do, and sometimes I get a smacked hand and sometimes I don't. But I think I'll get away with that one.
Well, I know what you're saying, Simon, because I agree to a certain extent. I talked to a woman today who's doing something great. She has a group, Make America Free Again, and she does these Thursday meetings and does calls and sends them out there. And that was really great. But at the same time, Simon, you and I are both pretty students of World War II and know a lot about what happened there and Marxism and totalitarianism and all of that. And the main issue, and I think I get what you're saying, is even people like us on a very small scale, but fighting back right now because of these people and that they have no, they don't have a conscience. They're not thinking like this is humanity, or people should be able to have a voice or have individuality, or they've already censored so many people. They put all these people from January 6th into jail. Some of them are still there. One guy got out. He was in solitary, and a lot of and we know a lot of the people that fought back in World War II had to do it in underground and had to like flee in the middle of the night. And there is a feeling right now that all of the three-letter agencies in America are working for the deep state and not for us. And
That's
thus courage to fight back. Yeah, I have it, you have it, and we're out there doing it. But at the end of the day, who's going to have our backs? They don't even have the backs of the cops right now. And that's scary.
This is the information I'm getting. The only guys that I think you can trust are the NSA. The NSA, from what I'm understanding, are the only ones who are behind what I would call truth. All of the other agencies have literally come out now and supporting the deep state. And I'm very concerned about certain people like Rudy Giuliani. And I will say this, that they are so empowered, these agencies, they will plant evidence and they will do whatever they can to take people out. Now, if you're an ordinary person, an ordinary American person, how do you stand up against an organization like that? You can't. And it's wrong to be asked. I'm not being disrespectful, Anne. Please don't be cross. But it's one thing. Okay, thank you. It's one thing to say, we need to, we the people, we have to do this, we have to do that. But what do you actually want them to do, Anne? Because you can't take guns and go on the street because you don't want that.
No, of course not.
If they go do a peaceful demonstration, that doesn't mean anything. And at the end of the day, you've still got the organizations completely and utterly rotten, controlled by these evil people. I mean, look, if they were prepared to do what they did to President Trump, then they're prepared to do that to anybody.
You're absolutely right. Well, what did America do 250 years ago, Simon?
Well, you want to create some Minutemen. I think that's a brilliant idea. But again, it was about guns.
Well, we threw off tyranny, and it did get Connecticut. It did go kinetic. I don't want to see that, but there are more of us physically. We don't have to use guns, but there are more of us. I mean, I'm not suggesting you do this, but here's an idea. My father had said this years ago, because my father used to carry a bumper sticker on the back of his car that said, "Fight organized crime, abolish the IRS." And my father had said, if President Reagan had said on his farewell speech to the United States of America and to the world, frankly, "My fellow Americans, it's been a great 8 years. I don't know about you, but I'm not filing my 1040 this year." Can you imagine? I mean, if you understand that the 16th Amendment is unconstitutional, or the way it's enforced is unconstitutional, and that you don't have to pay income taxes, if you start there, you immediately start defunding the government. I mean, it just becomes a cascading effect, and you reduce the size of the federal government. And from the federal government comes a mass amount of money that gets dispersed to the states, which fund a lot of other things. I mean, some of these states are staying alive because of the fires that happen in California, and they get all this emergency money rushed in there. I mean, it's a sham. We know what goes on. But we here collectively, and other people, but not everybody fully understands how this game is rigged. So you've got to start, and this is what President Trump did, Simon. He was very good and very artful at kicking people in the wallet and grabbing them by the purse strings and getting them to fall in line. And this is one of the ways he organized trade deals that were fair for everybody. You have to go after the wallet. So one of the ways Americans can fight back is with the wallet. And you're seeing us do it in supporting patriots like Mike Lindell, who've been kicked out of stores. So we support them that way. We can do it with our own federal government. We have to kind of start to say, we're not going to support this anymore. We're not, and it's like a tea party. You start doing it that way. And then of course, how do they exist? I mean, the country's in chaos right now. And I'm not saying we're going to coast through this easily. I don't think we will, because we've allowed it to get to that point. So the people have to be held accountable too, Simon, because they've allowed this to happen for the last 70 years with the misprogramming and miseducation.
One thing that happened in Britain, and it's interesting, was that we had a very unpopular tax many years ago, and Charlie will know this, and maybe Mel will as well. It was called the poll tax. But there were lots and lots of riots. People did lose their lives, but it had no effect at all until the riots took place in the centre of London, where all the tourists are, and the banking area was attacked, banks were burnt, cars were torched, police cars were turned upside down. It was an incredibly serious riot. But because banks were burnt, because the downtown area was trashed, I mean, seriously, thousands of people, and that caused the Prime Minister at the time to resign. But what it took was a massive disobedience with physical loss of life in the most high-end areas. Now, I don't want that for America.
But it's happened. It's happened, Simon. Look what they've done with COVID. They've locked us down. They've put 6 patients in the elderly homes. They've killed thousands and thousands of people. This is a bioweapon. They knew that was coming. Our government was complicit in the manufacturing of it. They fired the first shot. When are the American people going to defend themselves?
Well, that's the question.
They've already waged war, Simon.
That's my point, Anne. They haven't. The American people actually are just, by and large, because they're peaceful people.
Right.
Americans are peaceful people. They're generally God-fearing, and they've been taught in your country more than any other to respect uniform, to respect law and order, and that actually is working against you guys now, because you have a huge respect for people who might have a uniform, but actually they're corrupt.
I'm not disagreeing with you on that at all. And I've been talking about that with our military for several years, because I've got plenty of evidence of it on a story that I've covered for the last 3.5, 4 years. And it's a travesty, but I won't digress there. But you're absolutely right. We've been taught to respect law and order. President Trump has, taught us to respect law and order. The problem is, as you're saying, law and order is funded by corrupt governments. And at the end of the day, they're people too. They've got to put food on the table, and they've got families, and they have to make a tough decision. But I've heard some pretty compelling videos coming out of the UK, frankly, where your law enforcement are saying, I'm not going to arrest people for not wearing a mask anymore. This is this is not right. We shouldn't be doing this. And so at some point, people have to they've got to listen to God and go listen to their conscience. I mean, this is the good and evil battle that we're talking about here. This is the bigger picture. That's the blanket expression for what's going on here. So at some point, we have to listen to that inner voice, which is God telling us what's right and wrong, and we have to act accordingly. And, I can't recall any history at all where there wasn't an epic battle of good and evil going on, going all the way back to the beginning of time.
Yeah, one of the things that's happening is they've been trying to foment a race war. And I believe that the race war is backfiring. I really do. I believe that people of all races and religions, especially the Black community, who has been, I believe, incredibly used through this. But we're talking about, there's been the same race hustlers running the Black community for 40 years. And I think that the good, which is the majority of Black people in America, are now looking at these people like, how are you still there 40 years later? And you're telling us that it's more racist now than ever after, 8 years of a Black president and 2 Black AGs and all of this. I think people are starting this critical race theory. All this stuff is backfiring, and it's backfiring because the people that the Black community is starting to be like, we don't agree with Black Lives Matter. We don't agree with this rioting stuff. The Asian community is like, why are they passing? It's all of that is already illegal. So it's all, it's illegal in America to discriminate by race or sexual orientation or any of that. It's like, if we have so many laws on the books, including for guns, all of it, that if they were just enforced properly, all this stuff would be moot. But the truth of the matter is, I think all races, religions, LGBTQ, everyone, I think that they've gone too far. Again, it's these same people, these Luciferian maniacs that twist everything around and then they throw it out there. It's the same thing as Marxism, Stalinism, the whole thing. and they try to divide and conquer. They pit us against each other. But I really do think people are watching the extreme of it. And then the corruption, we're finding out these Black Lives Matter people have made millions and millions of dollars, and no money's going back into the communities. No,
Right.
they're not helping them. And I think it's becoming more and more clear to people that they really just want unity for real, not the government unity, the unity of like, no, we don't want our kids taught in any way, shape, or form that their skin color matters. We don't
That's
want,
right.
you know, people, because their new thing in America, especially with schooling and also with police, is equity. Equity is a losing theory. Equity is about Stalinism and communism. Equality is what we strive for, and
Right.
and people are waking up to that. I really
Mhm.
do think that. And also the Black Lives Matter and Antifa, I think again they've overplayed their hand. It has
Yeah.
gone too far. I think the masses are sick of it. And again, also like Simon's saying, there is a mass exodus of cops. So this defund the
Yeah.
cops
Yeah.
really backfiring. I mean,
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
backfiring.
Yeah.
So it's more this kind of stuff that I think is going to motivate people even more, because I think people look at the government apparatus, because Ann and I do always talk about looking at who's on your school board, your community board, your city council. But I think when it comes to fundamentally claiming that America is an awful racist place, and that we should be that certain victims should be elevated while everyone else should be pushed down, is a concept that does not fly.
Doesn't work.
No.
Mel, I've got members. I'm just nodding my head there with you because I've got members in my organization who are police officers in the United States and who are just gone. And the point is, it's the good cops that are leaving,
Right.
and the bad cops are left. Now, that's not what we want. But I can tell you, I have Anne may not know, but I have a 80,000 membership now, and vast majority are in the United States and Australia and Canada and Britain. And I've had 3 cops. I won't say who, where, or I'm not going to do anything, but there are 3 cops in the United States who have all left. 10, 20 years of service, simply because they feel they are being put against the people, because they feel that they are either a part of the community or they're not. So they're not leaving because the violence has always been bad. They're prepared to be shot at. But what they're not prepared to be is corrupt. And so what we're noticing is that precincts are having more and more of the bad cops. And the good cops leaving. Now, that can't be allowed to go on. It's ridiculous.
That's what I'm watching in New York.
Yeah.
That's what I'm watching in New York, because you can tell so many of the cops are new. First of all,
that's exactly it. That's
an amazing amount of female cops I've seen recently, and they're clearly much younger. That's a big problem here in New York. You know, they've just demoralized the police so much. Our shootings are off the charts. But I do believe that the Black and Latino communities that do have the gangs and stuff are realizing they're going to be the ones that will pay the price for this defund the police, for this crazy lunatic leftist stuff. It's their children that are going to die. And that's another thing that's really starting to come out as more and more Black conservatives decide that they've had it. And they're coming out more and more, and they're saying all of this stuff is only going to end up hurting our community. We've worked so hard. And so I think that there's a certain level of that going on that will empower different people. It's just, at this point, you know, I think people just really need to see some monicum of justice. And I do believe what Charlie believes, which is that we are going to, and that we're very close. But at the same time, you know, there is that feeling that, okay, now that Arizona did it, a group has to do it in New Hampshire. A group has to do it in Georgia. A group has to do it in Michigan. It's not going to happen itself. And this woman I was speaking to today, there's ways to do that. But again, a single person can't fight the system. And we know, all of us know, that the other side, with the Soros money and the Rockefeller money and the Council of Foreign Relations and the NGOs and the think tanks, they're organized. They have the spokes. They have Our side has really been more about God and family and country and figuring out our debt slavery and getting through that and working hard. We don't come from, and you and I at least don't come from that world where we expected anything to be handed to us. We worked and worked, and that's mostly who I know. So to me, it's more of a situation where the have and have nots and the victims versus the victimhood and the oppressed versus it's our side. I call the patriots, because I don't believe in the two-party system at all. I think they're equally horrible. They're equally corrupt. But it really is more about the patriots getting together in these specific places and taking Arizona's lead and jumping on it now. If there's groups like your friends in Arizona that really put this all together, if we had them in all these different counties, because don't forget, it was mass cheating, not just in the presidential, but also in the county and the local.
Yeah.
And people should, and I've said people should be looking at that, the corruption in their town, in their local community, because I've found when I look into it, you scrape a little under the surface, you're going to find the same grants that put the AG
communists
in office. Right, exactly. They're all, and they've infiltrated. So it's in the small towns, it doesn't have to be a mass thing. It has to be in your local community. Find the corruption and call it out. And I've said to people, it seems lame to say, like, write an op-ed in your local free paper, but it's doing something. It's doing something. And that's the thing. It's more about the organizing, and we're late to the game of organizing.
And we've got to give them a platform. When you find these people, Simon, like what you're doing, give them a platform. You have a huge platform. Give these people a spotlight on them, and they'll motivate other people to do it. That's what we do at Steel Truth. We take our platform and shine the spotlight on the ordinary citizen doing extraordinary things.
Right.
And
look at the real estate prices in Florida. People who can get out from other places are getting out.
Right.
And I feel really, really, my heart goes out to good people who can't leave. They're stuck in these democratic swamp pits.
Sad.
And they can't get out, and they're good people. And I'll say that we can't leave them. We can't leave them to be preyed on by these absolutely vultures. And I don't like it when good, honest, decent, God-fearing people are being kicked. It doesn't seem right.
No, I think you'll find that we're in the very last phases of that right now.
I hope so.
When the first domino falls, they will all fall very, very quickly.
What is the first domino? Can you even, not when, because when is a bad question, but can you tell us what it is?
Arizona.
Oh, you're talking about the election domino. Okay, yeah, Arizona, of course.
Once that falls, their house of cards will fall apart.
Yeah.
I also think Cuomo. I think he thinks he's getting away with something. I don't think that's true. And I think when Cuomo, I do believe it's coming out every day, and he's standing out there. He's such a sociopath. They clap for him. He's so proud of himself. A bully like him, the minute he goes down, because all of those governors were involved. And it was an organized plan.
Yeah.
Cuomo, even on Hunter's laptop, Ann, there's emails between the Chinese where Cuomo's like in the chain. He was in on it. They were in on it. And I think that's another avenue. I've always said the minute Cuomo goes down, he's taking them all with him.
He's the Harvey Weinstein of the governors.
Right.
Politics. Yeah, he's the Harvey Weinstein of politics.
Don't forget,
nipple rings and all.
Right.
How many times has Trump said we've got it all?
I don't even know.
They cannot stop what's coming. They cannot stop what's coming. Yeah. We need to remember that they can't stop what's happening.
We've caught them all. We've caught them all.
We've got them all. And yes, it's not as fast as we want it to. I agree with you, Simon, on that. We'd love it a lot quicker. But I've learned to be peaceful, because I don't know what time we're going to arrive there, but I know where we're going to arrive. It is very frustrating. I get it. And there's a lot of people who are suffering. There's a lot of people that are losing their lives, and not through bullets, through vaccinations and other things.
Right.
There's a lot of people losing, but we sometimes overlook the fact that we are in the Third World War. Just because there's no guns and no bombs going off.
That's right.
It's still an evil war that we're in, destroying evil, and the battle is I believe the battle is already won, and this is all pantomime. That's what I believe.
Well, we're gonna find out one way or the other,
Yeah.
and if it's not on
you
this
know what? There
planet,
really
it's
is
gonna
no
be
other option.
there isn't.
Because we're going to be usurped by the one world government if we don't it's so crazy, but we're going to be a Marxist communist one nation state to these people that'll be like meeting in Kazakhstan talking about their how they took over the planet, you know, like it's like a Dr. Evil. We can't let it happen. That's the bottom
I
line.
think the new world order is dead.
Yeah.
I really do. And
I agree with you. I think it is dead.
I think their plan for a financial control takeover is gone as well.
I agree.
And I do agree with